Pura Satya here in Singapore, and thank you so much for joining into the Night Owl podcast. You guys, it's been a little while now, and I have taken a break for a couple of days, but I wanted to get on the mic again because something recently came to my attention. Don't mind my breathing, I'm having a little bit of sinus trouble. Something came to my attention as far as characters in a TV show, TV series, movie even, and I think it's very, very important to talk about the depth behind each of the characters and their roles. Speaking to a friend of mine, and he was explaining how he had to get into character for a specific villain role, and while he was the villain, he really tried his best to bring a very humanistic approach to the villain itself, so people would understand why he chose to do the things he did, why he felt vindicated in making the choices that he made. And I thought it was really, really important to bring that topic up because I feel like to be labeled as the bad guy, to be labeled as the villain, everyone gets super offended. The truth is, no matter what we think, in our own stories, we're the hero. But guaranteed in someone's story, anywhere along your life, someone's story, you're the bad guy. I've been the bad guy in so many people's stories, and I'm okay with that because at the time, that's who I was. I didn't know any better. I was fighting for my own needs to be filled. I did not have the best coping mechanisms. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did what felt right. And I did what got me to my end goal, which was being noticed, being important, being loved, or so I thought. And at the time, because I didn't know any better, I didn't have the empathy that I should have had. I didn't have the foresight or the understanding of being on the other side of things that all of my actions have consequences, and not all of them are very nice. So there have been many instances. I remember we used to do dance camp every year, which is in the summers for about 5 weeks. It was Gurukulam style, which means that the teachers come into the place where we're actually conducting the camp itself. All of us live together, which means you live, eat, breathe the art that you're learning, which for us was Bharatanatyam, dance. And we lived with our teachers, which means we really understood the culture behind the dance, their understanding of dance, how they were brought up. We really got that like full surround sound experience almost of how to, perfect the art. But along with that comes a lot of, cliques and high school behavior, bullying, just not the most adult, mature stuff going on, because I mean, we were all kids, but there were moments where I'd finally found a group of people that I thought I clicked with, and when the new kids came in, we ragged them a little bit. That wasn't so cool, considering I'd been on the receiving end of that before. And I'd had people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, do you remember me because you were so mean to me back in the day? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry. And please forgive me because that was not my intention at all. I think I was just trying to fit in, and I just chose the wrong crowd, and I went along with whatever was happening, even though I probably knew it was wrong. So for the most part, I know what it's like to be the villain. For a lot of times, if you were to ask my mom's side of the story, I was probably the villain in her story. A lot. And if you ask my brothers, at one point or another, I was probably the villain in their story. You want to ask my stepkids, in the beginning, I was the villain in their story. So I'm okay with being the villain, but I know that when you try to draw a boundary and tell somebody that they hurt you, they immediately get offended. So this is why I wanted to kind of confront the label of the bad guy. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that something you're doing is offensive, it's hurtful, it's causing pain or trauma, and it's up to you when that label pops up, not to get offended and defend yourself, but to ask more questions and find out what it is that you're doing that might be causing some pain. Now, it's easier said than done with kids than it is with adults. When I was just brand new step-parent and trying to figure out two kids from two different moms, lived in two different houses, and I was trying really hard to get them all in the same place so we could be a family, because that's actually what I wanted. I wanted it for my ex-husband, and I also wanted it for the kids because I knew it would be very helpful. But it wasn't easy because they were raised very differently. There was a little bit of favoritism, and I was very entrenched in my mom's way of teaching and parenting. And as much as I vowed I would never be my mom, that's exactly who I was in the beginning because I didn't know any better. And so when I tried to force them to do things because it was appropriate and I deserved respect and all this stuff, they pushed back because they're not from my culture. They push back because in their culture, that's what they do. They push back. They ask questions. They yell. They scream. They are very disrespectful. But it's all for a good cause, because at the end of the day, if they get to speak their mind, I actually get to figure out what the damn problem is. So as much as I tried to control their behavior and I tried to punish them and I tried to intimidate them and I tried to frighten them, yeah, I knew it didn't work. It did not work. It didn't work for me. I don't know what I was thinking, but I guess because I didn't know any better, this is what I tried. And eventually, through a lot of tears and screaming matches, I finally got to the bottom of it, and they told me point blank, you make me feel like I'm not important. And I'm like, well, no, I'm building this whole thing for you. You are very important. But I also deserve some respect, and I had to be able to open up my mouth and tell them what it is that I expected for myself as well. And I wasn't very good at that. And I didn't know if what I was saying made sense or if it was offensive to them, but we tried. I think I've said this in podcast episodes before. Sometimes the first conversation, the first time you attempt to fix something, it's going to come out wrong. I guarantee it's going to come out wrong. The wrong words, the wrong context, they're going to take it out of context, like something's going to go wrong and you're going to be upset with each other. But as long as you put the relationship first, you're going to find a way to get through that moment. You're going to find a way to be like, okay, you know, okay, fine. You said this and I got offended. I said that and I, was trying to get back at you, but this problem still exists and we're not going anywhere. I'm not leaving anytime soon and you're not going to disappear on me. We got to figure this out. We're under the same roof. So at that point, it's open dialogue. And sometimes the simplest words are the best, without all the flowery language, without all the curse words in between. Just to say, hey, you hurt my feelings. This word hurts my feelings because I remember when I was growing up, my mom used to love to call me goofy. And I don't know if it's because she actually thought I was goofy or if she was making fun of me or if she knew that it pissed me off. So she did it when I was upsetting her so she would get even. But the point is, I told her that it hurt my feelings and she continued to use it. And it wasn't until many, many, many years later that I explained why the word goofy hurt me so much. Goofy is a dog with a very wide gap between his teeth. And at the time, I had a very wide gap between my front two teeth. And Goofy doesn't conjure up any feelings of suave, debonair, cool at all. He was clumsy. He was awkward. He, was always saying the wrong thing, always tripping over himself. He was not someone you would want to hang out with on purpose until you actually get to know him. And I don't know to this day what the intention was behind, the nickname of Goofy, but it really hurt my feelings. And it wasn't until I told her all of those things that she finally understood, okay, fine, this really irks your nerves and I'm going to stop because obviously you're not Goofy anymore, but I'm going to say sorry because back then I didn't realize and I didn't know how much it hurt your feelings, but now I do. So sometimes it is the label itself initially that points to the problem, but that's only if we can get past the ego that serves behind the label. Like, I don't want to be called pretty because I don't want to just be pretty. I want to be so many more things than that. I don't want to be called prudish because I don't think I'm prudish. But obviously all of those adjectives are subjective. It's based on the other person's opinion of you. And unfortunately, there are no real facts. There are only opinions. How you feel about something that happened versus how the other person feels about something that happened, because the thing that happened has no value until you assign it. So the label of the bad guy itself has a really bad connotation, but to be able to label anybody, to tell somebody that, hey, I think you're this particular way, or I think, this idea matches up with what my opinion of you is, gives the opportunity for us to have a conversation about why. And then we can counter or whatever. But most times we don't get past the ego that wants to reject whatever the label is or fight because that's not your opinion of yourself. And we don't get to that place where we can have those good conversations where we really break down what it is that you meant and, okay, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And should I change? Or is there something I can do to be better? Or what is it that you really feel, So unfortunately, this goes for mental health as well. I know that so many people are talking about labels like narcissist or gaslighting or, there's so many of them, bipolar, depressive, anxiety, all of those words that mean something big in mental health, I think people use to label others, but it doesn't necessarily point to how they can overcome those ideas. Because let's face it, there have been many times in my life where I have gaslit somebody in order to get my own needs met. Gaslighting is a defense mechanism. Gaslighting is a coping mechanism. It's a way for you to feel important at the expense of somebody else. And the only reason that behavior continues is because somebody is allowing it to continue. So when a bully comes up and gaslights, a victim or whatever, the only reason they can continue is because the victim is not going to stand up for themselves. And a lot of times, the reason the bully even picks that person is because that's not the kind of person who's going to stand up for themselves. So in order for the bully to change, people need to stand up to him. Something needs to happen where he suddenly realizes the effect he has on that person and realizes he would never, ever, ever want to feel like he's making that other person feel. Same thing with narcissists. Their need to feel important is so big and immense that they don't care who they sit on or squash in order to feel important. And unfortunately, at some point, all of us have done it. All of us. It's not a term to be thrown around lightly, and especially with the connotation that it has at the moment. Immediately when somebody goes through a breakup, oh, that guy was a narcissist. Oh, that guy was, gaslighting me the whole time. Oh my God, this person was so two-faced and so, fake about it. She was probably bipolar. Like, all of those things are so easily thrown around, and I hate it because you're not talking about the problem itself, but you're labeling someone, and all they can do is to defend, because they themselves don't know what else they can do about it. No one's teaching what else you can do because no one wants to own that. So here I am telling you, yeah, I've been the villain in several stories. Yeah, I've been a narcissist in a lot of occasions. And yeah, I've gaslit people too, because you know what? I couldn't take it and I needed some kind of vindication and I didn't know how else to get it. So I am both good and bad. I am capable of great good and great evil. And as much as I hate saying that, even to this day, some days I'm tempted. I'm tempted to lose my temper and really scare the hell out of everybody so that they stop taking me for granted. But I also know the amount of mess that I'd have to clean up on the back end is not worth it. So I gotta kill him with kindness, y'all. Because I know better. Because I have that sight now. And once you're awake, you can't unsee some of the things you've seen. But here I am telling you, when you label someone like that, and I will do a podcast episode with each of the, the ideas behind the label itself, like the things that make a narcissist, so the things that make someone who is gaslighting even feel like they should gaslight, or how that behavior is reinforced because no one stands up to them, no one stops them in their tracks, because it's less stress. They don't want suddenly to become the victim because they stood up for somebody else. So I get it. It's not easy. It's not to be taken lightly. And I want you guys to understand, you have both the capacity to be the hero and the villain. In your story, obviously, you're the hero. It's your story. But guess what? We play a part in so many other people's lives. Our lives touch so many others. One off-colored tweet could make you the villain in someone else's world. I'd like to think I'm pretty positive. I'd like to think I'm, quite inspirational. I don't know. Sometimes I have my moments. I'd like to think that I try to encourage and motivate as many people as possible. But I also know that there are plenty of people out there who have blocked me. Maybe I'm too personal. Maybe I'm too positive. Maybe they just don't like the sight of me. It's okay. But the point is, they blocked me for a reason. And no, I'm not going to go out and ask them why they did that. But obviously they had their reasons. And yeah, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to continue doing the best that I can. If you have the courage to come tell me what it is that I did to offend you, then maybe I can try to make amends. But until then, I'm not going to worry about all those things because I can't. I mean, that would drive me to anxiety and I don't have time for that. So please, the label of the bad guy. Yes, in one person's view, that person is the bad guy. But consider it from their point of view. Maybe they're dealing from a place of trauma. Maybe they're trying to deal with some kind of PTSD, and because they were bullied, unfortunately, they're doing what they know. They're bullying as well. Look at our history, our parents, our grandparents, everyone ahead of us, right? The older generations, they're doing what they know. They're doing exactly what their grandparents did. They're doing exactly what their parents did. They're passing down the pain generation to generation. And those of us who are watching and suddenly noticing, hey, you know what, that's not okay anymore. We're standing up and we're pivoting. We're changing the direction that we use to raise our kids or deal with our family members, we're not actually going quietly anymore. We're actually trying to find our own place. We're trying to stand up for ourselves. We're trying to find a way that feels good to us and managing to not offend anyone in the process. And it's not always easy because you trying to do something different often calls into question whether the people before us did it right or not. They tend to take big offense to us trying to do things a different way because they've always done it this particular way, right? So for instance, if, they've always done what their parents told them and they've never questioned their parents, whether they're satisfied with their life or not, they're not going to be okay with the fact that we want to question them because they weren't allowed to. How dare we do it to them? If we decide that, we've been in the corporate world for a while and we've tried very hard to, find our way, but we don't like it, we want to start our own business, maybe they get offended because maybe at one point they had that dream, but they had to suffocate it down because they weren't allowed at the time to even, step out of that comfort zone of doing what their parents told them to do. And so us doing it at our age often invalidates it calls into question how sound were their decisions. Were they smart enough to do the things that they wanted to do or not do? So either way, as much as we're trying to find our way, we are going to offend other people. There is going to be somebody who thinks that we're the villain, that we're the antagonist in their story. And it's okay. And if you value the relationship, the best you could do is ask them why they feel that way about you so that you can maybe find a way to bridge the gap between the two of you. Chances are it's a misunderstanding. Chances are you have this one intention that you have not said out loud and they just need to hear it so that they know that you're not against them, you're trying to figure out for yourself. So with all of that in mind, I want you to think really carefully about what it means to be labeled anything, whether it's being labeled fat, whether it's being labeled, gym rat. Some people take offense to that word. Whether it's being artsy fartsy. There are a myriad of labels that don't sit well with any of us because we have a specific idea of what that label may mean. But if you don't ask the questions, you don't get a chance to fix the relationship, or at least get to a place where you don't offend each other, but you understand what the other person meant. So I'm hoping this helps you guys. If you have any questions, please drop me a line. Let me know. I want to hear from you. But yeah, being the bad guy is not always a bad thing. Being the bad guy means you offended someone, sure, but what are you going to do about it once you've been labeled? And that's the real question. That's what I want y'all to start asking. Well, they feel this way about you. What are you going to do about it? Yeah? I love you guys. I'll catch you later. Bye.